Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Scottish Property Podcast. My name is Stephen Clark and I'm joined as always with my co-host Nick Ponte. How are you, Nick?
What's happening, Stephen Clark?
We are interviewing Jennifer Olivier, and we've got Jennifer on because she's really great on our Facebook group page. She's always so nice and dealing and willing to give away advice and ask questions and just really engaging. And I thought it's nice to bring people on that are in our community now and get to know them better and get to know their strategies.
Yeah, so it's not Jennifer Oliver anyway, it's Olivier. You added an extra A in there as well. Olivier, A.
I actually wasn't even Olivier. She didn't even know how to pronounce it herself. But I hope her husband doesn't listen to this.
No, anyway, no, it was a really good interview. Really enjoyed speaking to Jennifer and, felt like she's contributed a lot. She's given a lot of value to our group members on the Facebook page. Some of her posts are really engaging because she writes them like a story. So, it's not just a couple of lines. She puts a lot of effort into them, almost like a blog post. I actually thought she was had a background in journalism or something like that, but she's actually got a background in HR, which was quite interesting as well. So yeah, really go into a lot of different things, she's tried a few different strategies, essay, buy to let, and recently she's going big on the flipping.
Yeah, no, it was a really, really good mixed strategy, a nice chat, because it shows that property journeys aren't always plain sailing in a straight line journey. You'd have to kind of twist and pivot, and she explains why she's went from our flips to our holiday lets to our essays, and then now back into flips. So it's quite nice to show that she's doing a variety of different things.
We speak quite a lot about her latest kind of flip venture, which she hasn't actually picked up the keys on, but we go into kind of detail about interior and how important it is to kind of, get things right and where to spend the money just so that you reach that, maximum value at the end price. So I'm sure you guys will find this really interesting, and let's just cut to the interview and see what Jennifer's got to say.
So Jennifer Olivier, welcome to the Scottish Property Podcast, and thank you very much for joining us.
You're welcome. You did well there.
I know. I know the listeners will be listening. Why the hell am I laughing? And I was trying to ask Jennifer's pronunciation of her second name, and I'm laughing because she doesn't even know how it's pronounced. Her husband's South African, so she said Olivier sounds quite nice, so we'll go with that one.
Well done. You got that in one take, Stephen. Proud of you.
Right, mate. Thank you. So Jennifer, we're delighted to have you on the podcast. You're very active on our the Scottish Property Podcast Facebook group page, and you're really engaging with the people when they ask questions. You answer them, and you also ask questions your own. So we love to have listeners or kind of people on from the page to kind of get their backstory and kind of get to know you a little bit better. So can you give the listeners a little bit of a backstory on how you got started in a property and what made you want to get into property?
Yeah, I think I was one of these people that always had a natural interest. When I was speaking recently with Sam Dyer on Clubhouse, and just before I kind of did that, I realised that when I was little, I used to collect these little ornamental little houses and stuff. So when I was thinking back, I was like, yeah, my interest started really young, and I always liked sort of doing up rooms to make them look pretty and things like that. So when we first got our own house, people would often say to me, oh, you should do this for a career. I would renovate the houses that we lived in, but I never sort of really took it seriously. And then I was like everyone else, I would watch Homes Under the Hammer or Property Ladder and things as it was back then with Sarah Beanie. And yeah, I always fancied it, but yeah, I just never really did it. But what happened was I actually separated from my first husband, and he wanted to stay in the family house. So he bought me out of the family house. So I had a pot of money for the first time that I could choose to do something with. And being by myself now as well, I could decide what I wanted to do. I wasn't sort of bound by anybody else. So that's what I decided to do, was to rent for me and my daughters. And I bought this house that was completely covered in black mold in Dundee, with the view to renovating it and selling it on. So that was the first thing that I did.
Nice. So have you went into flipping completely since then? Does that mean?
So what happened was I did that house and it went really well. Made about 30,000 in a few months on that. But then I ended up buying another house and put all the money back into that, our own house that we still live in now. So I had no money left to do anything with. So I had a break of a couple of years. And then sadly my mum died. She had cancer, and my dad had given up his work. He was a painter and decorator, and he'd given up his work to look after my mum. So my dad and I over the years had always talked about doing up houses, and we'd always fancied it, but the time had never just been right, and my mum wasn't that kind of enamored of the whole idea. She was quite risk averse, and when I bought the mouldy house, as we call it, when I bought the mouldy house, she would just say to me, how can you sleep at night? Like, how can you cope with this? So it just wasn't her makeup, but it was always Dad's. So we decided that we would do something together. I was still working in HR because that's my profession. I did that for like 20 years. But we decided, Dad and I, that we would do this together, and it would give us an interest, shared interest and things like that, give him something to do with his time now that he was retired. So we started flipping houses then, but just as a hobby, not as a really serious business.
Brilliant. Could you talk us through that kind of high level overview numbers of that first deal then? So you made 35,000 on that.
Oh, I would actually have to check them. I've got terrible memory. But yeah, I don't actually remember the exact figures. Like, I've got them available, but they're not in my head.
That's all right. You can post them up in the group at a later date.
Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, I'm happy to do that actually.
That'd be a good post.
I'm talking about 2011, so
yeah,
going back some.
One of the things that was interesting. Sorry, mate. Sorry. One of the things that I found interesting there, when you had that kind of pot of cash to start off with, you decided to actually go and rent a home for a while, and then you obviously used that money. That's really smart, because a lot of people, they don't like the thought of renting a property, when they've got a bit of money. Probably a lot of people would have gone and then bought a house, and then all that cash would have get used up, and then you wouldn't have that opportunity to then leverage that cash. So I think that's something that a trick that maybe a lot of people miss out on there. So that, would you say that kind of played quite a big part in you being able to sort of move in and use that cash effectively, renting?
Yeah, I wouldn't have been able to do it without doing that. And then, so I did take a risk doing that, but I saw it as a calculated risk. I had done my numbers. I remember there was a house for sale, which really helped at the same time as the one I bought a few doors up. So that instantly gave me a comparable. So I felt that it was, a calculated risk to take. I suppose I did fall into that trap though, because I then went and put all the money into our house.
You did eventually, you did.
It was great because that actually gave us the money for that. It gave us the money for the deposit and for the renovation we then did. So because I think lots of people flip by sort of doing up the houses that they live in. So a lot of people are obviously go on a journey where they do up the house that they live in, and then they make money and they move on to the next one. But I think the difficulty with that is that you do make emotional connection to houses. And so the house that we bought, I had always wanted to live in that terrace, always. So when that house came up, for me, it was actually the only one. The rest of the terrace are all flats and our one's a house. And so I knew that it was our only opportunity really to live there. So it's that emotional thing. And sometimes you do, you want to be emotional, you want to love where you live. So yeah, from a business point of view, maybe I shouldn't have bought then, but from an emotional point of view, I'm glad that I did.
It's quite a good point there. It's quite a brave choice. If you've just been recently divorced, you've got your kids sitting there, you've got this pot of cash, and rather than, and like you say, piling it into something that's safe and secure and put it into a property you own, you rent somewhere, and then and then you do what you've been passionate about for years, never had the chance to do, which was renovate and flip a property. So I think that's quite commendable.
I think that's why my mum was anxious about it for me. But I think I probably am that sort of person, which again I get from my dad. My dad's such an optimist. Just unbelievable. And because I said I did HR for like 20 years, and I remember I took a similar risk when I started my own business in HR after about 10 years. I had a really good job to go to. It was all lined up. It was going to be better money than I'd ever been on before. And I decided on a bit of a recommendation from someone I was working with then, just to go out on my own and say no to that job. I pulled out of it and started my own business. So I suppose, yeah, I've got that kind of attitude to things, that I'm willing to take risks that I see as, like I said earlier, calculated ones. So.
Yeah, something that could propel you.
Yeah, especially if it's something that you've always wanted to do, you know. I think some people are kind of just have that from early on, because even from when I started out in HR, I knew I didn't always want to be an employee. I wanted to do it on my own. So I think, yeah, some people just are like that, I guess.
It's good. It's good. And so your dad's now became your business partner in your property journey then?
Yeah. It's nice. I mean, it's really nice. But I mean, I told him from the start that he was to enjoy his retirement. He was just to do whatever he felt like doing. And if he didn't want to do things, he didn't have to. So in a lot of ways, he's quite a silent business partner. He does just the little bits he enjoys, which is completely fine. I mean, occasionally he'll do a little bit of labouring and things like that if he wants to, but for the most part, the bits he enjoys are looking at the houses to begin with, and then taking his friends round at the end. He loves taking his friends round the houses.
Sounds like a great. He's got a good end of the stick there.
Yeah, it works for us both, I think.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. And does he do the painting and decorating on it, since he's a painting and decorator trade?
No, I think he did. I think he did the first one, but he'd been, I never remember the number, but something like 40 years doing painting and decorating. So when he actually gave up, it was like all of a sudden he realised how sick he was of it.
Mm-hmm.
So he did our first one, and then I think after that he was like, no, let's get somebody in. But he moans about their work. Oh my word, does he moan about their work?
Yeah, I can imagine. Being a painter and decorator for 40 years, you're going to be quite critical.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, that is good. That sounds that's quite nice. I mean, I think a lot of people will be quite scared to do business with their family as well. I know I am as well. You know, you can think you can put strain on relationships, but since you kind of set the boundaries up front, and obviously you sound like you've got his best interest at heart, and just saying, look, you do what you want to do in this process and enjoy your retirement. More so, sounds like a really good match.
Well, Dad's really easygoing. Like I mentioned before, he's optimistic, he's easygoing. I can think of maybe one argument we've had like my whole life. He's just that sort of person. So there would be other members of my family that we just know that I couldn't work with. Not because we don't have a good relationship, but just because the kind of different people that we are and just how we would clash. But with Dad, yeah, we just get on really well. So it's just nice. So,
nice.
I think to take up your point about being nervous about doing business with family, so was I, and so am I. So it's something though now that I think drives me, because Dad put a lot of trust in me. You know, he put that pot of money in, and so now I feel a drive to prove to, because I've got a brother and I've got a sister, and I feel a drive to prove to them in the long term that this has been a good positive thing for everybody. So that's, you know, like you say, when you're doing business with family, it does become about more than that. You know, there's something there that you want to be able to maybe give back and prove as well, in my case.
No, that's a good point actually. Yeah. So where's the business went recently? Because your Instagram is very much like interior design stuff, and you know it's very much the finished product. So where's it taken you in recent times?
Yeah, so I think the interior design stuff, when I first set up my Instagram account, at that stage I knew I was wanting to get out. Well, I didn't want to get out of HR because I loved HR, but I knew I wanted to be doing something different. And I thought at that stage, oh, I know, I'll do like interiors for investors, property investors, because there's a market there, because a lot of them don't do that side of things that brilliantly. But then I kind of quickly realised I didn't want to do that at all.
Then you realise that everybody is so tight they didn't want to spend the money.
No, that's true, especially you know, because if you're doing that kind of thing on a budget, but it takes a lot of time and effort to get the interior looking really, really nice. And so the hours that you would put in, it just kind of wasn't worth it. So I decided, no, I wasn't going to do that. So initially I had set it up as Olivier Home Styling. But over time that changed, and I've only recently just changed the name of the account, which is now Olivier Shaw Properties. But all the pictures on my Instagram are either our own house or the houses that we've done up and renovated and things. I think you asked where we are now. We've taken a bit of a different turn. So I said we flipped as a hobby for years. And then I decided to start holding property. And that was a big turning point. And we hadn't done that historically because Dad hadn't wanted to. And I said before, I was always kind of driven by, okay, well, what does Dad want? I don't want to force him to do anything he doesn't want to do.
So and he, the mindset shift to decide to hold.
For me, I mean, I talk about it quite often with I've got a friend in property. Well, we hadn't seen each other for years, actually. We used to work together in HR years before. And I remember because then we would talk about Sarah Beanie a lot and stuff. And I hadn't seen her for years, and we met up for a coffee, and she'd just had another baby, or she was expecting, I think. And I said, oh, what are you doing now? And she's like, oh, I don't work now because I've got my properties. So at that time, you know, she was bringing in several thousand a month after tax from her properties. And I was like, oh. And she said, yeah, because while I'd been flipping, she'd been keeping them. She'd been not quite built BRR, but like in a different kind of way over a couple of years. You know, she would refinance after a couple of years. And I thought, I'm doing something wrong. Like I kind of, not wrong, but I could be doing something differently. Because I realized, I thought I was free when I set up my own HR business. I was like, right, okay, no one can tell me what to do now. You know, I'm not an employee anymore. This is brilliant. I can be flexible around the kids. And then I realized I'm kidding myself because I've got clients, and if they want an answer and I'm on holiday or doing, like, they get an answer. Like I always wanted to give really good customer service. So I was still at everyone's beck and call. And I was still doing that thing of exchanging time for money. So, you know, a headmaster wanted a difficult letter done or a difficult meeting run. I would show up and do it, but actually not very much money. And I thought, no, I'm still doing this wrong. Here's my friend here, and she's, you know, out having coffees, and her bank, you know, she's getting money into her bank. So I thought, right. And so I spoke to Dad again at around that time, but it sort of coincided with something else happening. So we had bought a little cottage in Kinnettles, which nobody's ever heard of, which was part of the problem, which is near Forfar. And it's beautiful, little B-listed row of cottages. And we bought that and we had renovated it, and we were trying to sell it, and we would have again made the typical amount for us, which is about 30,000, there or thereabouts, 30, 35, 40, that kind of mark. But we weren't really getting any viewers. We'd had like a couple, and it was quite a small property, beautiful little cottage, but cute, but quite small. And at that time I was starting to hear about Progressive Property, you know, Progressive, the big training outfit. And I put on the forum there, look, you know, this is the situation, what do you think? And they were like, that's a perfect holiday let. You should turn that into a holiday let. So I spoke to Dad, and I explained to him, you know, why I thought this was a good way to go, and he came on board with that. And so that was our first holiday let. So we did sort of change approach around that time, and now we've got 5 that are classed as holiday let or serviced accommodation.
So did you put a refinance on that property then?
Yeah.
Throw the original money back out and then go and put on Airbnb, Booking.com, these type of platforms?
Yeah, that's right.
You don't self-manage it at all, do you? You put it to an agent? Absolutely
not. Yeah, I put it to an agent. I actually did that one, and I put it to an agent, and I put it to like a national firm.
Right.
Because I was like, first I've ever done this. I want it to be really good. I want to be safe. And I put it to a national firm. But around about, it kind of crossed over with me doing another project and having another cottage ready in Broughty Ferry a few months later.
See, before you go on to that,
Yeah.
sorry, before you go on to that, I've got a couple of questions for you because there's a lot you just said there. And I want to pick out the point about, see, when you met your friend for that coffee and you
Yeah.
thought she's got that money keeps coming into her account and you
Yeah.
thought you were doing something wrong there. Something kind of twigged with me as well, because it's interesting. Everybody wants to do the flips because you make that kind of, you know, that big pot of cash, you know, and at the end, well, you hope you do. But, you know, everybody kind of disregards the buy to let at the start because they think, oh, it's too much hassle, don't want to be dealing with tenants and all the rest of it. But it's a really interesting one, because if I think back to when I started sort of seriously and I did a couple of flips at the start, now I'm wishing to myself, I wish I'd kept those ones, because, you know, I maybe made like 15 grand or something like that in profit. But if I think back to that property where I made 15 grand in profit, now I probably would have made 30 grand in capital growth and had all that, you know, passive income coming in as well from the rental income. So I think it's a really important point for people to think about when they're starting out. Don't know what your thoughts are on that as well.
I'm the same as you. I've got a friend of mine who bought the properties that I flipped back in 2009, 10, 11 when we were picking up repossessions. And these properties, 2 and 3 bed ex-council houses, have all doubled in value. So you were getting them from about 55 to 60 grand. They're all worth 120 grand upwards. Exactly. And I flipped them for 14, 15 grand profit. And I always kind of kick myself thinking I've done everything the wrong way. But when I speak to my wife about it, she's like, but the problem was you were putting that money on a credit card for the renovation and the deposit on a credit card. So you really only make decisions based on, you know, your current situation. And it's nice to look back on hindsight and say, oh, I wish I'd kept that, I wish I'd flipped that, I wish I didn't even bother fucking buying that thing. But you know, you always make these decisions based on your kind of current situation, and then you kind of learn and evolve. So yeah, I kind of see your point, absolutely. But it's your journey is completely your own journey as well. Your friends was your friends, so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
See with the holiday lets then and the essays. So how many essay units have you got?
Well, you know, what is the difference between a holiday let and an essay? To me, you hear different things and they're used interchangeably a lot of the time. To me, a holiday let is somewhere you'd want to go on holiday, you know. So we've got three that are like cottagey kind of places that you'd buy, you know. 2 are in Broughty Ferry by the beach, one's in Kinnettles, that little hamlet, that B-listed little cottage. So I would call them holiday lets. We've also got 2 flats in Paisley, and a tenement, well, both tenement blocks. One's in the conservation area, one's near the hospital. I would consider them more SA because they tend to get like one of them's in McIntyre Place in Paisley, and that one tends to get a corporate person going back.
Why did you pick Paisley coming from Dundee?
I didn't. And this has been part of it. It's like you were saying, Stephen, you do things according to your circumstances at the time. So a lot of our decisions that we've made or the growth that we've had have been based on our personal circumstances and what makes sense for us. So my husband got a job working for UWS at the University of Scotland in Paisley. And we bought our flat as a second home there. But we bought it cash and we renovated it, and then we put it on an interest-only mortgage. And so we did a renovation there, and that's how we did that. And then we also bought a flat for my stepson, also in Paisley. So he's since moved on, and you know, he's moved somewhere else. And Steve, my husband, has also got another job in Aberdeen. So that's why those properties then became available to do something else with.
Are you still outsourcing all that, the management of all that? So you're not really hands-on in terms of the...
They'd not want to be hands-on at all. No, it's not. I mean, I've worked as a cleaner, and so no disrespect to, you know, any cleaners and stuff like that. I've done that. I've had those jobs when I was younger, but it's not what I want to be doing now. I don't want to be changing other people's beds and things. And I didn't want to be bogged down with the detail of guest queries or channel managers. And so no, Clark Anderson are the company that do all 5 of those.
How's it been over the last year, obviously, with the pandemic and all that, having that exposure to that market, you know?
It's not good. Not good, because it was just the worst time for us to pick to go into that. So we were literally with the Kinettles one, we were just warming up. I think we put it live in October. So it was that we started in low season. It was just starting to get somewhere before the turn of the year, when obviously we got like a year ago today, actually, lockdown. So no, it's not been a good year to be in that kind of sector for in my experience, particularly because 3 of them are very much holiday type tourist type things, and you weren't allowed, just not allowed to take guests. I mean, Clark Anderson have done their best, and there's the odd sort of category where you were allowed to have somebody, and so then we could have them if people are in between accommodation, that kind of thing. But it's not been anything like when we put them live. We had bookings. Somebody from Australia booked for like 3 months or something, but it all got cancelled.
Yeah, but they reckon like they reckon this summer, because they think that possibly we won't still be able to allow to go to abroad on holidays. So maybe things will be restricted to staycations again. So you might be all right again this year. Summer.
That's what we're hoping. And I wouldn't be doing any more holiday let SA. I'm not. We don't want to keep any more right now. And want to just see how it goes over this next while. And that's why we're back looking at flipping again, because what we did with the type of growth that we had, just the way it all worked, we've ended up tying up a lot of capital in these houses, because they're not that cheap houses. They're sort of the kind of houses that we should get good capital appreciation from. They're quite pretty, attractive houses. But we've tied up a lot of capital in there, so we're looking to flip again before we would look at holding anymore.
It's quite good to mix them and kind of like I suppose we just touched on. You do the strategies based on your circumstances and your position. Now, no one could have predicted the global pandemic. You've kind of went for this holding or bigger cash flow and holding strategy, but it's not kind of worked out. So yeah, you can flip while in the meantime, that recovers and to build up the pot to then go and either go back into holding or find your next movement. I like that. I like when people aren't quite rigid on, no, I'm sticking to my goal is X amount of properties or whatever the cash was, I'm going to just keep going until they do it. It's like, no, bend and move with the times and the economy and circumstances in life. I think you're doing that well.
Well, one of the ones that we bought for personal circumstances, because it's just beside where I live, and we bought it with the point of view of if my dad ever needed, if he got more frail, because he wasn't well a couple of years ago, and our house isn't suitable. We don't have like the right kind of layout for somebody that's not well. So we bought a house that came up 2 doors down from us, and we are now letting that out as a holiday let. But if my dad ever was unable to live on his own anymore, we could quite easily, much more easy than if it had been a buy-to-let, which is what we originally did. We converted it then to holiday let. So you can use it for personal benefit as well, and still, it's still profit making, but you're doing things that suit your family. So
yeah, absolutely. I've got one of my goals this year is to have a holiday let, but it's more for lifestyle, family lifestyle. So every other weekend we can take like daughter away for a long weekend and just get away and enjoy some nice family time. So yeah, it's quite difficult when you think of it as an investor, because you really want to make money on it. But I'm kind of looking at it going, well, if it washes its face, but then you know how hard that market is in nice little hot spots like Pitlochry or Aberfeldy or in these places. Like, they're just extortionate to get at the moment. They're within a couple of days on the market, they're sold well over the asking price. Like, you're just not getting to at least try and get some of the money back out. So I'm kind of feel like it's going to maybe one of the goals that won't be achieved this year.
Yeah, I'd like to do something like that as well at some point in the future. We've got quite a big family, because I've got 2 daughters and 2 stepsons, and anytime that we want to go away together, the prices that you get charged for somewhere that's got 4 or 5 bedrooms, as a holiday place. So I would like to do that at some stage as well, actually have something like that, where they have the hot tub and they have all that kind of stuff that people pay really good money to stay in.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, use it for your own family and be more of a lifestyle investment rather than just particular investment to look at your kind of return on investment from it. So the next flip you've got on the go, that looks like a beastie one. Can you tell us any details about that?
Oh, this has been a nightmare. This has been a nightmare, if I'm
You
honest.
seen this, Nick?
I've not. No, it's on your Instagram.
This is this farmhouse that people are sick of hearing me banging on about, because we offered on it in September and we still don't have the keys. And yeah, and what it started out as being in terms of a project, it's probably not going to be quite what we thought.
Whereabouts is it?
So it's kind of near Carnoustie-ish, like Maniki Park, near Maniki Park and Crombie Country Park. It's in sort of a location there. It'll still be a good project, but it's really tested my patience.
What have been the issues with it?
I think so. It was a farm owned by one family, so the seller still lives on site, and so does his brother, and the house that we were buying was lived in by his mother and was his family home. So there's been a lot of kind of conditions put on the sale over time. And I think COVID to begin with was part of it, slowed things down. And then latterly there's been more kind of, what's called deed of conditions. I don't know if you've come across that in any of the ones you've done, but this deed of conditions just seems to have taken forever. And another one of the issues was we were buying outbuildings with the property, and the plan was to demolish those outbuildings and get planning consent for a house. So we were going to be renovating the main house and selling that, and then we were going to be doing a new build on the property. But now we know we're not going to do that. So that's just changed laterally because we had to do the dig to test it, and they hit water too soon, and nothing can be built there.
All right.
So
during the site investigation.
Yeah. So the deal totally changed, but we didn't want to walk away. So we're still going to do it because it still should work as a normal flip, but it's just not nearly as exciting as what we thought it was going to be. So.
That's good. And any light in the tunnel of when you're going to get the keys?
I keep thinking tomorrow, like Annie, I don't know, like it. Maybe in the next week or so, we're waiting on them being the deed of conditions now is now being registered, but we're just at the mercy of the solicitors, and there's only so many times you can chase them up, but we will get there. It's now all agreed. We will get there, but it's just frustrating because that time's important when you're investing, and it's like we could have done a whole project
in the time,
but we didn't want to. We really like the seller, he's a lovely man, and that's where once we've given somebody our word on something, we don't like to go back on it.
You have commented on the Facebook page before about finding it difficult to negotiate hard negotiations to get a deal, haven't you?
Yeah, no, I mean that's true. I say that we've still had good deals. In the past, we've tended to go for houses where they've been on the market a couple of years already, and the sellers have already dropped their asking price. So
the expectations of lower,
yeah,
you're going in to lower it.
Yeah, but in other cases, we don't like to take advantage of people. It's got to work for us. They're not going to do it and make no money. So it's got to work for us, but at the same time, we just like to be able to sleep soundly and feel like we're doing business in a way that we feel okay with. That's important to both sides of yourself.
Yeah. So could you give us high level overview of where you think the numbers are looking like on this project, what the purchase price and the kind of the extent of the renovation and what you think the sale price is going to be? And people can kind of follow you from the back of this journey.
Very roughly, the purchase price is 195. Renovation probably somewhere around 80, I'm thinking. And we'll get into the 300 somewhere, not exactly sure where, maybe 320, maybe 330, maybe more, but it's
nuts. It's going just now, maybe a lot more.
We're changing it to, could be. I'm like, I prefer to work my numbers on the worst case at the other end, the done up value. I mean, you look at it and you think of what's realistic. That very first one that I did, I said I didn't remember the numbers, and I didn't, but I do remember, it's coming back to me a bit now, and the one that was for sale that I mentioned that was the comparable in the street, I think that was on for 170. So I was like, okay, that looks sensible. But I think we got 19 something, 195 or whatever. So it's always better to work that way and get a nice surprise at the end.
Yeah, I do exactly the same with my values. Kind of under egg them each time, even overestimate the spend on the renovation as well. And at least you know that if it still works for your profit margins, you're going to get a better surprise at the end when it works out even better.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about your flips then, Jennifer. So when people are doing flips and that, and you obviously got experience with design and interiors and that, where should people concentrate their efforts, give it that wow factor? And obviously, you going into this one, where are you thinking that you're really going to kind of add the value or, make it the best possible property that people are going to come and see,
Yeah. So I think you want to look at adding value in terms of the actual structure of the house, as well as the sort of curb appeal aspect. So for this particular one, it will be changed from a 3-bed to a 4-bed and from a 1-bath to a 2-bath. So we'll be doing that. We'll be completely redeveloping the garden. We have bought those outbuildings, just like we said we would, even though we're not building on them. So the garden, we're going to have to make sure it adds value. So I'm thinking about all the kind of things, again, you see on Instagram right now, where people have got kind of little outdoor, kind of almost like outdoor kitchens, they've got fire pits, they've got pergolas, they've got, it's a lovely kind of nice zoned garden.
How'd you do that without totally getting carried away and blowing the budget? Like outdoor pizza ovens and all that. Do you know what I mean?
I know. And that is going to be the test of it as well, because I find the garden stuff so expensive. I think I said that to you recently, Stephen. I think people really undervalue that when they're looking at properties. They're like, oh yeah, and it's got a nice garden, and they don't look at how uneven or messy the ground is and what it's going to take to sort that. And so it's going to test me, this garden, how to make it look great on not crazy and not over, not completely.
Stephen just gets the neighbours in to do the landscaping. he had a little old lady next door at his Kinross project spreading chips over the back garden.
I remember that. I remember hearing about that.
She was lovely. She volunteered. Didn't even have to ask her. You have got £80,000 to spend on this renovation though, so you've got a chunky budget. How did you come up with a renovation estimation of what you need to spend?
Right, okay. I wish I could tell you that I sat down with a spreadsheet and I got 3 quotes for the windows and I got 3, but I didn't. I think you build up a sense and of roughly what something's going to be. And so I guess it's more of a set. You get used to it. You're like, okay, we roughly 5,000 for the electrics, we roughly 5 for that. That's what I do. Because I find that anything else isn't realistic, because unless you're going to get loads and loads of access before you get entry, and you're going to be able to trail millions of trades around and do it, or you do it when you get the keys and you slow the whole thing down for months while you get all that done. Plus I work with the same guys now, so that helps, that helps a lot, because I'm used to their prices and I'm used to, what a kitchen might cost me and things like that. So I would call it an educated guess. It's not a complete, just wild stab in the dark, but I would call it an educated estimate of what it's going to cost.
It is so true. I've got the joint venture with the 2 young guys that are on my mastermind group, the project we're doing in Bridge Erne, and I'm pretty sure they're expecting this spreadsheet of broken down costs and everything so intellectual and broken down and everything so fine-tuned and come up with a number based on mathematics, and it's just not the case. Like you say, you've got an idea because through experience on how much you can spend on each point, but you can never have a completely accurate price a renovation. I was trying to explain them, they were saying is there not a spreadsheet where you can do and you can kind of flow, and I'm saying no. If you rip that plasterboard off, what are you going to find? Are you going to find dry rot, damp, wet rot? Do you know what I mean? What you're going to find, you don't know until you rip stuff off and you start stripping the property out before you find the extent of where your renovation is going to be. You could factor these costs in, but you can't get an exact, like you said, accurate costing of what it's going to be unless you want to slow the project completely down and and
Yeah.
loads of quotes, and even that's going to be loosely done, isn't it? Because if they come in and find something, they're still going to bill you for it when they say, "Oh, we found rotten timbers, we need to replace it."
And I can understand if it's your first couple of projects that you really feel the need to do that, and maybe that's sensible if you've absolutely no idea where to start. But I kind of try, and if it's a property to flip, I try and look at the upper end and look at what space there is, you know, with the ceiling value. And that's why this one, you know, detached, going to be 4 beds, you know, nice views, all that. I'm thinking there's space there. There's space there to push up that end value. So if we've got space, you know, and we're starting below market value, which we are, I think the original price for this one was 235 or something. Then, you know, then we're in, you know, because we're starting ahead of ourselves and we've got space maybe to push it at the end. And that's where, to come back to your question, Nick, about interiors and design and style, that is where I think you can push the price that you end up getting for the property. You can go to a closing date, depending on how you do that.
That was going to be one of my questions there. You always get the question that people ask, especially when they're starting out, you know, is it worth spending the money on staging? And obviously you did a bit of staging at the start there, you were saying, was it? And then you decided not to do that. So if people are flipping, would you say that's money well spent? How much are you talking about for staging a 2-bedroom flat, would you say? You know, like...
Well, it's funny because the first few I did, I never properly staged them. I would do pictures, and I'd put up some pictures, I'd put up some mirrors. I would, like, if there was a space that looked like it was just a space, you know, I would maybe dress it with like a little desk or a little console to show that it was a valuable area of the house. But I wouldn't put beds in, I wouldn't put sofas in. In fact, I've not done that to date, gone to that extent. I'm thinking about whether to do it for the farmhouse, but I don't think you have to. I think as long as you make it look attractive. So I think just some little pieces to style it up are important, but I don't think you need to go to the extent of having beds in place, unless it's like particularly small or something like that, and you want to prove, yeah, you can get a double in there, or, you know.
I used to do the blow-up beds, you know, the big blow-up beds, the thick ones, and use the overhanging sheets that I used to hide the blow-up bed.
Idea.
40 quid blow-up bed and put some bed sheets on it, like, cost you next to nothing. But it showcased where the bed would go, how a double bed would fit into the room, and it just people, particularly a sense, especially, you know, people that maybe couldn't quite visualize where the bed would go, or the room's a bit tight, or it's a bit, you know, a bit odd shaped. You showcase it quite easily that way.
You see nowadays, like, estate agents are doing these, you know, computer generated images, and you honestly can't tell the difference when you until you walk into the property and there's no furniture there, and you're like, it doesn't look like that on the Rightmove advert.
Yeah, I know, they're brilliant, but I'm thinking about maybe doing that for the farmhouse, but from the point of view of trying to look at doing kind of what Stephen did recently, looking at maybe selling it before it's done.
I think that was really smart, but as Stephen said before, you know, imagine he did kind of, you know, put a bit, you know, did a bit of staging on that and then put it on the open market, and you probably could have made another 20 grand out of it, Stephen.
I think 30, possibly 40 grand more, like, if it kept up. I think I'm looking at the markets going, and I've seen the style that Jennifer, that you do as well. So I think put on the market, a little bit dressed, a little bit staged, a little bit where you're touching it. I think with the way the market's going, it's kind of nutty that people will end up paying well over the asking price for something good quality.
When we're flipping, just again to come back to your question, Nick, about where to spend the money on, you know, to get the best price, we try and buy properties that we can make look nice on the outside as well as on the inside. So right now, the farmhouse, to my mind, you know, is not anywhere near as attractive as it needs to be. So that's where I've got to think about, okay, do we go to the extent of building a porch out the back there to make it look like this? You know, obviously you could paint it. This one's got rough cast. Dad and I were saying, do we chip that off and see what's underneath? Do we not? Do we leave it? But we're always thinking about how to make the outside of it look as attractive as the inside.
These are really difficult decisions, though, aren't they? When you start messing about with the structure on the outside and stuff like that, because you could literally then run into additional, you know, tens of thousands if you're having to start, you know, stripping away porches and things like that, or
that's right. I don't think we will. I think my my biggest probably top tip is a pot of white paint. White paint is just a gift. I mean, if you were to look at my Instagram, you would see the vast majority of the rooms are just white paint. And someone will say, what color? What color? It's brilliant white trade matte paint, because it's what you put on top. Like, I think I used this analogy as well when I spoke to Sam, and I think that was the first time I'd thought of it. But like, as in baking a cake, you know, you've got to make sure that you're adding value in terms of the integral product that you're producing. But then that kind of plain surface, and then the pieces that you put on top are what grabs the eye and makes it look fantastic or doesn't. And so to date, we've painted all our houses white, and styled them on top to get things that draw the eye and make it feel homely. So, and that would be outside as well.
What you were talking about the exterior, and I think that's a really valid point, right? And obviously it's great to, you know, it's first impressions as you enter the front of the building, that. But looking back on Stephen's Kinross, that didn't really look anything amazing from the outside, did it, Stephen? Like the curb appeal and all that, was it?
Lucky paint, lucky light grey paint, masonry paint, yeah.
So, and that seemed to work all right. So yeah, I think there's ways of doing it on the budget still as well. For sure.
One thing that we haven't mentioned yet, which is probably worth mentioning, is the fact that we've got to factor in interest costs, because we are now working with private funding for the flips that we do. So that's been another, in terms of our journey, that's been another massive change for us. So the farmhouse is being bought exclusively with cash from private individuals, and the renovation fund as well.
Brilliant. So fully funded then?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well done. That's a nice growth step as well, and a step in the right direction. Because I'm assuming that you'll have found that over the years doing projects with your dads that you're kind of limited to your own pot of cash. And I think it's a big mindset shift that people often, they get in a property, they think they need their own money, they do their own money, but they're only limited to their own money, their own funds, their own capital, or what they can bring in from family members. So it kind of limits what you could really do. Like you said, you can flip one or two. So has that opened your mindset up now to doing so much more going forward?
Yeah, completely. And that's where I am at just now. So I had to get over the idea, first of all, of working with other people's money, which I probably did when I did some training with Progressive. I went on to do some training with them, and that opened up my mind completely. And I realized it's what I'd been doing for years with my dad's money as well. So that kind of helped. But now I understand the technicalities of doing that. The stage I'm at now is I've had a couple of approaches from people who want to joint venture. And again, in the past, I would have been like, oh, you know, no, I just want to keep it small. I just want to keep it the level I'm at. But no, now I'm talking to those two people right now about joint ventures and looking at raising more money, you know, to go into those, which is the whole mindset thing. And I find that it's exactly what I was taught, which is my Instagram. The majority of it comes through my Instagram.
Mm-hmm. I'm always really fascinated to talk about the private investor finance and all that. And we had Sam Dyer on just recently talking about that. It's something that I've not done yet, and I'm always curious as to know, like, did you find that whole process of finding people, number one, was that difficult? Did you have to plug away at it, or were you surprised at how quickly people came, or how easily it was when you approached them to actually, you know, get people to invest with you? How did you find that process?
I would say it's a bit of both. So I would say that actually working on my Instagram and doing that content day in, day out, that is you plugging away. That's a lot of work. My screen time is ridiculous, because you have to be engaged. So that's the plugging away. But after doing that, then I would say I'm surprised at how easy it's come. And I can't think of having approached anybody to ask them outright for money. People have approached us.
I think that's the key. I think that's really key in raising private finances. There's no point in going out there, you know, with your hand out asking for money. If you've got the deals and the track record, and you're, like you say, you're plugging away in your social media daily, people are going to reach out to you and want to work with you and want to offer their money to you.
Yeah, I mean, it's not all been through my Instagram, because some has been like through dad and people dads know, and the fact that people now know that this is what we do, And so they speak to Dad about it. So some of it's been through Dad, but a lot of it's been through Instagram.
See, in terms of that content that you're putting out there, because obviously I've seen some of your posts and that really well-written posts, I've got to say, like, I thought you were like a journalist or something like that previously, because the way that they're written, it's like it kind of gets you into the story and then you end up reading, scrolling all the way down. And I'm not a reader, I don't read a lot, but your ones were really good. But so you do more of them, I would say, than like kind of selfie videos and stuff like that. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I hate being on camera.
Yeah.
Like, oh, yeah.
That's interesting, because a lot of people are like, oh, I couldn't do that. You know, I couldn't put myself in front of camera. And I've always thought, well, video is the strongest, most powerful way to get somebody to kind of know, like, and trust you. But you've obviously done it just by doing kind of blog posts and written form content. So that's quite interesting as well.
Well, in that way, I would say I'm an open person. And that's been one of the things that I've found most rewarding when people have come to me and said about, you know, I've got this money and I'd like to do something with you, has been the fact that they've said, oh, we feel like we know you. Like, you know, and actually I think Sam said that. I think he said, you know, again, I've never met Sam, spoken on the phone, but he said, you know, you're one of these people that because of what you write and you share a lot, people feel like they know you. So yeah, I suppose know, like, and trust thing, it doesn't have to be through video.
Cool, that's good.
Oh, brilliant! I think it's been a really great interview, great chat. Covered quite a lot of diversified points, and you've shown the real journey in property. It doesn't start off with one plan and one fixed straight line, and that's when it goes to. It does curve off, and you know, and you bend and move and go into other strategies suit you. So that's been really, really good. Thanks very much for joining us, Jennifer. We really appreciate it. And could you let the listeners know where they could reach out to you, connect with you? Obviously, your Instagram.
Instagram's the main one. Yeah, I do it. When I post to Instagram, it automatically goes to Facebook, but that's where Instagram's where I am all the time. Olivier Shaw Properties. Yeah. And thank you to you guys as well for the Facebook page and the podcast, because there was such a gap in the market before you started, and I think it's been absolutely brilliant. So thank you.
And I appreciate the engagement on the group as well.
We rely on people like yourself, you know, putting up good posts and stuff to keep people engaged. So yeah, we appreciate the work that you do as well. But yeah, well, listen, thanks very much for your time. And just to wrap up, you know, do you have a kind of clear vision of where you're going with all this? Like, do you have a kind of end goal? Are you going to keep flipping the properties? Where are you going with it?
We're not, like I say, we're not going to hold anything else for a while. We're going to flip, and then I wouldn't say no to holding more, and I wouldn't say no again to more holiday lets, but I want to see how the market goes first. I want to see what the cash flow is like before committing myself to any more properties like that. But yeah,
that's very sensible. We'll get you back on to ask you the numbers in a year's time when we come back out of this, and we'll have a huge boost in holiday lets, like, which we hope for you as well that it does happen.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks.
Great stuff, Jennifer. Thanks again. Bye for now. I hope you guys enjoyed listening to Jennifer there. I thought it was really interesting hearing about her property career so far. And have we got a wee review to read out this week, Stephen?
We do, mate. Yes. Thank you very much for those that are leaving reviews. We really do appreciate them. So if you do have time, please leave a review. That'd be great. So this one is from Ricky Raj, and it's a 5-star review. Thank you very much, Ricky. I found this podcast accidentally after their episode with Mark Stokes was mentioned on Mark Stokes' SAS Facebook page. I've listened to many property podcasts, and being a remote Scottish investor, it's been a great find, packed with nuggets of wisdom. With help experienced and novice investors alike. Keep up the good work, guys. So thank you very much for that review, Ricky. Appreciate that.
Thanks, Ricky. And guys, if you want to take a screenshot of the podcast and tag myself and Stephen in it on Instagram and at the Scottish Property Podcast as well, then we'll share it out to our followers as well, and you can get some extra followers off the back of us. Thanks very much again for listening, and we'll see you again next week.
Thanks for listening, guys. Thank you.